Hello back, folks. New day, new interview, another piece of content. Yeah, I've been trying to give you all the most, pretty much, of what I can give you this time around. First of all, I wanted to start it off with a big shout out to everyone that's been watching and supporting the interviews and the content I've been putting out lately, because you guys have been great, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you're gonna enjoy this one and the next videos coming your way as much as you have the ones previously. But today, this is a pretty special interview. We're on a Balkan wave right now. So the most recent, well, no, the second last interview that I did was with Kiksan. The most recent was with Fear from Passion UA, but Kiksan, who's a Balkan in-game leader, a strategic guy. And now I'm going with another one. This time not from North Macedonia, this time from Serbia, but again a strategic guy, again someone that used to be an IGL and is a coach now, and someone that is a fellow Balkan. So I'm really looking forward to this one. My guest is, a lot of you might know him from his time on Endpoint, spent a couple months coaching them, and before that was around and about in the Serbian scene for pretty much forever, for like 10, 12, maybe 14, 15 years. But my guest today is going to be Holmes. Holmes, brate, fala for coming over. How have you been?
Thank you for inviting me. I know we couldn't catch up early on when you asked me because I had some problems, but I'm really happy and glad to be here.
I hope you have
Uh,
resolved everything. You told me that there was some things happening in the last couple weeks, but you told me that you were able to actually rest a little bit after endpoint. So we're gonna start it off nice and slow. What are you up to? What have you been up to since you decided to leave endpoint? You've been a free agent for what, a couple weeks now, maybe 3 weeks or so, a month.
yeah, I think it's been like 20 days, something like that.
Okay.
Not much to be honest. I've been grinding, of course, taking some time off as well. It wasn't as let's say as exhausting as when I was with Endpoint because of course you know how it goes when you're playing tier 2, tier 3. You have so many games week in, week out. So it's constant work, so to say. Not that I'm bragging about it, but somehow I forgot how it is to be a little bit free, a little bit to organize your time a little bit better. And also that could be a topic we could discuss. Uh, 2025 is approaching, and the most recent rules by Valve is there's no more open qualifiers, and
Yeah.
most of the tournaments are gonna follow that. Yeah, so it's gonna be even more exhausting and even more busy for coaches and for analysts, assistant coaches, IGLs as well, because in order to grind it out, you're gonna you need to play so many games.
You know what? I actually love that because you're the guest here, but you just gave me a topic I wanted to discuss later on. And since you started it, we're gonna start it off with that. So, what's your opinion on the open circuit for next year? Do you think it's gonna be a good change, or rather, because I think a lot of people got excited because on paper it's supposed to actually make it easier for lesser teams to get invites, or not lesser but lower tier teams. You know what I mean? To get invites for big events. But I had a chat with about that with Thorin and Tech Girl Sam like a month ago, month and a half ago on Feed the Trolls. And the conclusion that we got to, the deduction that we made was, I'm not actually sure it's going to be benefiting the lower tier guys. I think it's quite the opposite.
No, honestly, I I cannot tell how it's gonna feel because we need to go through it. But I reckon it's gonna be really exhausting for those teams because again you cannot jump over a couple of steps as you could before if you go to let's say tier 1 event through
Mm-hmm.
an open qualifier. Let's say it happens, even though it was pretty much difficult for a tier 3 team to go there, but still it was possible, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, in 2025, it's going to be much more difficult with having so many events to be played in order to get to LAN, which gives you more points naturally to grind HLT rankings. And I'm not sure if Valve is going to be doing something regarding their rankings because as much as I could see, it's more based on prize pool
Yeah.
than it is on actual. You're in an event with teams that are placed. Let's say if they're better placed than you,
Mm-hmm.
so naturally that's gonna give you points just being in that event. You don't have to win against anyone necessarily. It just
Sure.
probably it takes in consideration that uh, you've already proven yourself by getting there. But when it comes to Valve rankings, it's probably gonna get some tweaking. Um, about if it's a good idea or bad idea, think that there should be a middle ground. I'm not sure if the best idea would be to have all open qualifiers, but I'm not sure if the best idea is not to have open qualifiers, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
I would probably balance it out a little bit. And again, I believe it's gonna be much more of a burden to, let's say, tier 2, tier 3 orgs, because you need to be more staffed now. It's impossible to be prepared for all of those games if you have, for example, one coach, or some of the teams, like, let's say, if it's from Balkan Sea, Partizan, for example, they don't have as far as I know, they don't have a coach at all. So, for them, in order to get there, it's going to be really exhausting.
Yeah, imagine for example, we're gonna do another Balkan reference. Imagine for example, you're BTN on Nexus, and you need to do the coaching work, the analyst work, and you're playing like 3 best of 3s per day because there's gonna be a lot of tier 1 action, but there's gonna be a lot in the online circuit as well, right? And everyone's gonna try and be competitive, and a lot of those TOs are probably gonna start pumping in a lot more tournaments and entering because they know as long as they provide a decent prize pool, teams are gonna be playing their event, right? So, what's your opinion on that, by the way? Because you were part of the Tier 2 circuit as a coach for Endpoint for just a couple months, like half a year. But you told me that you actually felt the stacked up schedule, and that is without the open circuit. Even nowadays, Tier 2 and Tier 3 teams are playing most of the time like 2, 3 best-of-3s a day, and they barely have any time to prepare and then any time to practice. And you know yourself, it's impossible to do decent normal prep. We're not even talking about something extraordinary, right? But normal preparation for every single match that you play online, even as it is right now. And it's supposed to become even harder next year. So how do players and coaches and everyone deal with that pressure? Because mentally, I think this is going to be really draining in a couple months.
The competition is fierce, to say the least. And
Okay.
second thing is, in current format, you have MR12 and you have pistol rounds, let's say, that are really influential.
Yeah, they
So
decide
in
like
order to
40% of the game if you have the
yeah,
conversions.
so in order to have to max out your chances, you need to have match prep on the level. Now, I'm not saying, regarding myself, that I did match prep. I mean, I focused a lot on it, but this is what I said. Probably more orgs and more teams will have a need of coaching stuff and people working around, because yes, you should be playing on your strengths more and not
Mm-hmm.
think about your opponent. But like I said, the competitiveness, so many teams out there battling out to be the best, to come on top. You simply need to get that edge, and that, let's say, deciding factor of being better prepared.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap up that topic. I was just interested how you're seeing it from a coaching perspective, but I guess there's the downside that is going to be really is going to be a process that burns you out a lot. But then outside of being exhausting, it creates a lot more job opportunities for people like yourself, right? So it's not too bad of a thing. I mean, I'm a broadcast talent. Obviously, I'm happy that the changes are happening through my perspective because there's going to be a shit ton of work for me to do. But then you're looking at the fact that it's probably gonna get to you at some point, and you're gonna start getting burnt out. Now, the good thing is that I'm unburnable for that thing, so I'm gonna be good. But I'm worried for everybody else. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. But yeah, just to move into the next topic. This is usually how we started off, but you decided to take the initiative and actually give me the first topic for today's conversation, which I love. But now I'm gonna take
Sorry
the
about that.
control again. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. That's why that's why I like having Balkan people as well come on the show, because you come in and you're like, you already know what you want to talk about. You're
It
like,
just came to me spontaneously,
yeah, but that
So
that that's why we're here, right? I wanna get to know you a little bit more as a professional, as a person, and the entire idea of this is people getting to know you too, right? Because you are doing a lot of content in Serbian. You're streaming, you're doing some videos on YouTube, as far as I know. You're posting on Twitter and stuff like that. Which of course all of it is going to be below in the description of the video, but you haven't done a lot in English, so I think for a lot of people it's going to be interesting to pick your brain a little bit more. But speaking about picking your brain, I want to actually dig a little bit in your past. Tell me about how you started with Counter Strike and what was your introduction to the game. Because if I'm not wrong, you've been playing Counter Strike since 1.6. You've been playing Counter Strike since 20 what 8 9 or something like that.
yeah, I actually started earlier than that. I was a little kid, and the first thing that got me hooked up to CS, actually, my brother took me to an internet cafe.
Yeah.
So back in my hometown niche, there was a huge gaming cafe with,
Oh,
I
you're
don't know,
from
40
Niche.
PCs, maybe. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
See,
40
that's
PCs.
something no one's gonna. I'm sorry, but that's a tangent I need to say. Niche pleskavica, vrate, is the best thing in the
Yeah,
world, and all of Bulgaria knows that as well. A lot of the people that are watching and are not Balkans don't know that, but the cuisine, the specifically the barbecue and the meat from Niche is excellent, chef's kiss. But yeah, please
yeah.
continue. I just couldn't
Leskovac and
overlook that.
niche, it's the best. I was born in Kosovo, in Pristina.
Okay,
But I spent most of my childhood and most of my life in Niš. Now currently I'm living in Belgrade, but that aside.
okay.
So it was actually my older brother who
Mm-hmm.
introduced me to CS, and I got hooked up. Now when I was a kid back in the days, it was difficult for me to simply devote most of my time for it. But as I was in high school, first more serious teams in 1.6 came, offers came. We practiced. We became one of the best teams in Serbia and in the region. Later, when CS:GO came, I didn't really like it, so I didn't begin immediately, and I also had some private problems back in the days. But I took some time off. It, I think it was 2016. I started playing regularly, having teams, practicing, grinding, etc. So up until that point, until now.
Yeah.
A little bit in a different role, but yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. I want you to tell me a little bit about the early days of Counter Strike because you mentioned internet cafes. Internet cafes were a massive thing in Serbia back in the day, and in general in the Balkans there were so many tournaments. Well, I say as if I was there. I was like 7 years old when all of that was happening. But there was a lot of tournaments back in the day, and were you part of that group? Because I know, for example, some of the old school Bulgarian guys like Punisher, like Milenko, they've told me about how they traveled and they've played a lot of LANs in Serbia and all of that. Were you part of that generation, that group of people like, for example, Yanko, Kassad, NiKo when he was really young, Hunter when he was really young, when they were playing those LAN tournaments? Were you from the same group of, let's say, people that participate and play the same things?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we played so many times against each other in 1.6. My team against Nico's team. Kassad was there as well. YNK as well. I think, yeah. I mean, I wasn't that old, but I'm from that generation. I wouldn't say the first generation because those were some a little bit older guys
Yeah,
nowadays. But yeah, from the beginnings. And back in the days when you had a tournament, everybody knew it was LAN. You'd barely have anything online. So
yeah.
that's probably something people, if you mention it to somebody nowadays, it would be, they wouldn't believe it.
And what were those guys like? Because I rarely get to have a conversation on an interview with someone that's played with him that far in the day. So try to recall your first memories of guys like NiKo, like Nexa, even like Yanko and Kassad that are broadcast talent now. But well, I don't know about Kassad because he is a coach now, might become a broadcast talent again. Who knows? But what were the first memories out there? Was there like any funny stories? Was any one of them known to be a really specific guy for like a really funny guy for one specific thing? How was NiKo like when he was like 12, 13 playing those LAN events?
I mean, back in the days, as a person, he was a really good kid. Like respectful, of course, he is nowadays, but but
Okay.
he wasn't anything like maybe like kids you would see nowadays. He was full of respect, of massive talent, even in 1.6. He was just an amazing guy, simply full of respect towards everybody. This is how I recall about him. About everybody else, pretty much the same. I think everybody would. We couldn't wait to meet on a LAN, even though if we'd play against each other. It was simply like an event. We cannot wait to go and uh, chill a bit, hang out. We know how it looks, and this is why I said it's probably unfathomable for everybody to imagine that any competition, it's LAN.
Yeah, it's a unique thing as well because I think people associate those LAN events with, let's say, Sweden, Denmark, and they don't realize Serbia's always been massive when it comes down to LANs and LAN cafes. And I think the reason I'm asking this, and I'm glad you make that reference and you make the comparison to nowadays, because I've had that conversation again with some of the older Bulgarian players, and they tell me that back in the day, everyone was a lot more respectful and there was a lot less toxicity because of the fact that you were playing on LAN. So for example, that 13-year-old guy that's a prodigy and is aiming better than you, and let's say you're going to be 25 or whatever, you weren't 25, but just given an example, let's say you're a 25-year-old guy and there's a 13-year-old kid that destroys you in the server, but he's not going to trash talk you and he's still going to have respect. Because, and this is I'm saying this is a joke, everyone, don't take it seriously, because you can literally slap the shit out of him if he says something bad because you're on LAN, and that's why they have a lot more respect and everyone's acting a lot more accordingly. Do you think that was one of the reasons that toxicity wasn't as present as it is now in online Counter-Strike? Because this seems to be one of the bigger issues with a lot of the young and up-and-coming guys that don't get, for example, taught from early days and early age on academies from coaches and psychologists that they need to be acting professionally. Like, what was that the way to actually, back in the day when there was no such thing as mental coaches and psychologists in esports, to actually learn or teach those kids how to behave in a professional and respectful manner?
What you mentioned there, that was actually the case. Anybody of the kids who's disrespectful to an older guy, an older player, when a LAN comes and they come there, they get slapped. That's how it goes. I mean, they wouldn't get beaten up, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they get a you know respect to teach them some manners. That's how it went. I would say partially it is because of that, and partially is, I guess, we're the first generation of people who got introduced to the internet. Yeah, so we were hanging out before the internet, and we felt like even though we are on the web, we shouldn't be typing or saying anything we wouldn't be saying in real life.
Sure.
And of course, we reflect our politeness and the way we deal with people. We reflect it online as well. The same thing we would do in person. I guess those things are a little bit they have something to do with each other, but I would definitely agree with you that nowadays the community and all of the kids, if they don't have any guidance, by default, large percentage of them is disrespectful. They get toxic. They get simply annoying.
Hmm. And did you have any guidance while you were growing up in the Serbian scene?
I actually had guidance from older guys like Philip and Haiba. Those were the guys before those. I consider them first generation, and
Okay.
they helped me a lot. So there's a reflection we could probably connect it to Balkan mentality and Serbian mentality as well. Because back in the days when I would be playing with them, just the fact they're interested in playing with me, uh, it simply wakes up so much respect,
Hmm.
and I'm eager to learn to pick up from them. I'm acting like a sponge. While in fact, when I was doing that with some of the kids here, at some point they become disrespectful in that sense. What's this guy talking about? He's not playing majors or whatever it is, and I'm saying that for their own good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to guide them. So there also is that part where some people simply don't want to be guided, and this maybe a little bit too arrogant, maybe a little bit too uh, stubborn.
Okay.
So that could be a part as well.
Okay, and before we get into that, there's a lot of things that you're mentioning that I think are gonna align really nicely with you being a coach now, and we're gonna talk about that. But throughout your career, because it hasn't been, you've been on a lot of teams in the Balkans, and you've played with a lot of players over the years. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. You've played on more than 10 different teams, or maybe even above 15. Uh, what was your what was the situation with with your family accepting what you want to do for a living? Because correct me if I'm wrong, have you actually done anything on the side, or was it always full-time Counter-Strike? Was there that moment when, for example, you had to go to uni, or you studied, maybe you had a degree, or you dropped out, or whatever? What was the situation there with you potentially thinking about doing something else? Because you know it really well, especially at the early stages of CSGO. A lot of the legends of the game, like guys like, for example, Forest or whatever, had other jobs, and they were doing other things. So it was incredibly difficult to actually make a living out of it, especially when we're talking about someone coming out of a more conservative region as the Balkan one.
Yeah, actually, I was in law university.
Okay.
I dropped out. I mean, a long time ago now, given I'm 32. Um, Before I was doing some, let's say, we have those uni jobs, university jobs that you
Mm-hmm.
connect with them, and most of the times they're part jobs that you can do while attending university.
Yeah.
But the first time I started living off of CS, it wasn't actually playing. It was I was trading with skins a lot back in 2014, 15. It was something like that. I wasn't at that time. I didn't think I would go into CS in terms of playing a little bit more seriously until my brother actually bought me a PC in 2016. So I was I was trying just to make my way through whatever you give me. I'll make something out of it. But given I like CS, of course, I tried my best to keep in it. So back in the days, like I said, it was trading, and this is one of the things I think CS has such a big of an advantage over the other games, not only FPS games but all MMO games, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
because they have this universal um, and original way with skins.
Yeah.
So it's not nothing like pay to win. People do it because everybody wants to have a nice skin. They pay for it, and it has no influence over the game or the game itself. So yeah, early on trading, then I was playing a team. My first professional team was Squared, which was a Danish org. Maybe
Yeah.
there was something
That's
before that, but
2017, if I'm not mistaken.
2017,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. I think in 2016 we had some success. I'm a little bit digressing, but I'm trying to pick up on what happened. I know we went to WESG as a local team. We were
Mm-hmm.
40 something in the world, but we couldn't get an org. I don't know if it was they were not interested in us. Back in the days, Nexa was playing with us. Uh, they were not interested in a Serbian majority org because, as you know, in Serbia we have a couple of orgs, and that's pretty much it. Similar thing
Yeah.
to Bulgaria. The
Oh no,
Balkan
it's not.
season.
It's not similar. You guys have much more organizations than we do. We used to have some in the back. You've actually played. You've played on EFRAC, right?
Yeah,
But that
yeah,
was on
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1.6. Yeah. Yeah.
True, that's true. You even you know more about me than than I can remember.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't know that by heart. I just did a little bit of research and asked around some of the Bulgarian folks. But yeah. So you'd say 2016-17 was when you actually went full in, like all in, into being a pro player.
Yeah, being a pro player and doing side quests in order to keep myself fully in the game.
Okay.
I was doing individual coaching back in the days, and probably, like I said, Squared was the first professional team I got signed. And to be honest, this was maybe an interesting story. I was really close to quitting if it wasn't for Squared, and Mads, owner of Squared, if he didn't come with that proposal, I think I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be in CS at all.
Okay. And have you thought about where you gonna stick to law school and just try and become a lawyer?
Yeah, basically something else because, like it's really difficult to make a living off of CS if you stick to the region itself. And I
Yeah.
made that mistake. I can openly say it's a mistake for trying to make the region better, trying to make, I would say, teams here from scratch. Even though some teams were successful, again, it was my own demise, so to say, because it required a lot of effort. You don't have an org, you don't have staff, you have people that don't know how to act professionally. What does a professional mean? Because we are a little bit behind Europe in that sense. When you mention a word professional, everybody means make a living out of it. In that sense, oh, I'm getting paid to do a certain thing. They don't know what comes with it and all of the things you need to be before being professional, before putting signature on paper, so to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not looking good here. If I could go back in time, I'd probably stick to international lineups and teams instead of trying to work something with people here.
That's a really interesting thing that you're saying, by the way, because you've been part of. I'm trying to think right now at the top of my head. You've been part of some of the bigger Balkan organizations. So you played on Blue Jays, you played on Onyx. I know Chets is not a UK. It's not a Balkan. It's a UK thing. But you've played on a couple more recognizable teams. Of course, the most recent ones were the Juggernauts and iNation as well a little bit. Even though I think you were inactive on iNation or something like that. But you've played on
I was standing in there. I was
yeah.
trying to help them out.
Yeah, but you've been key point is bottom line is you've been part of most organizations that you could have throughout your career, and you've played with some players that made it really far, right? You played with you told me you played with Nexa, you played with Madden as well. If people didn't know, too, but the fact that you're looking at it and saying it's probably a waste of time, why do you think that is that because only because of what you're saying, and we can delve a little bit deeper into that, because people don't know what to be a professional means? Because from my experience and through my perspective, that is completely true, and I really do think that you're onto something here. But I'm looking at the capabilities of Balkan players as team players, being team players, and not only being individually good. Because I don't think Balkan Counter Strike has ever struggled with having individual skill, and I think you're gonna agree with me on this one. But for whatever reason, teams can't be built from that region. So through your experience, someone that's played over 10 years in the scene, what are the main things that are stopping a Balkan team from becoming not even a tier 1 team, but like a top 30 team, let's say? And we're gonna put some brackets and say, okay, Eternal Fire, sure, but if we're talking about Bulgaria, Serbia, Macedonia, Romania, we're talking about uh, Croatia, if you will, Kosovo, Montenegro, all of those countries. And I know, again, the Guild Eagles were a thing, but we're talking about teams that have existed for a little bit of time, maybe a couple months. The Guild Eagles was probably the biggest anomaly, being there for like 2 or 3 years. But other than them, we haven't had any projects like that that have been long-term successful.
Like I said, the approach is probably everybody is a little bit impulsive. Everybody would, in my case, when I was trying to be IGL, trying to assemble teams,
Mhm.
make things from scratch, at some point, people they don't want to usurp your place, but everybody feels like they can be IGLs, they can be operas, they can be everything
And you've
instead of
always been
sticking.
an in-game leader, right? Just to clarify that.
No, I haven't always been. I started being game leader in 2016 or 17.
Okay, so
Maybe it was
as
even
soon as you went full time into Counter Strike with Squared, you were starting to make that transition already.
mm, not really. Not really. Early
Okay.
on, I wasn't IGLing. I became an IGL simply because there were no IGLs in Serbia.
Okay.
And early on as well, there were no cases of international teams apart from early lineups of G2, then FaZe, and a couple of more. You just had a few teams, so it wasn't a thing back in the day. So probably it was also a difficult scenario to build an international team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, like I said, everybody needs to understand that the way things work, natural cause of things is you show potential, you show your attitude and professional behavior, then you become a professional in full sense of that word. It doesn't come with, oh, I have 3.5k elo, 4k, I'm really good, I'm a pro. You know, if you join a bigger org, a tier 1 org, they will put you to place in that sense. They have such stuff. Of course, if you do anything that's out of boundaries, you're gonna get, you know, criticized and talked to. They're not gonna tolerate any behavior. But I'm talking about a scene, a region that has no that luxury due to its own reasons. Yeah, it's not that the game itself is not as popular here. We don't have big number of orgs. We don't have big number of players. Even in Serbia, I cannot tell you. I cannot name a couple of players that that have broken through in last couple of years that I can tell. Oh, this guy is a world talent. He's a class talent. You know. So all of those things, it's I would see people a little bit work more on themselves and trying to make the team better instead of, oh, I'm gonna use this team as a next step to break through, to get recognized, etc., etc. So more than one thing, it's a little bit more complex.
Yeah, complex is the word that I was thinking about as well. Because how do you make those guys? Because it feels like it's kind of like a magical circle that you can't get out of, right? Because the older guys, for example, the more experienced guys are gonna be like, well, I just spent 10, 15 years of my career, nothing happens because of whatever reason. And then the younger guys coming in are gonna say, well, the older dudes don't want to teach us how to play. They don't want to invest in us so much. So we're gonna do as everyone else that was successful from the region did. We're just gonna play on domestic scenes for like 1 or 2 years until we get recognized, and then we're out of here and we're going to play internationally. So how do you break that circle? Is it possible to actually break that circle?
You can't. You can't. If you're stuck in a region without proper support by an org, you cannot do anything. Because at the end, as an IGL, let's say, I'm probably being subjective as well, but I'm trying to be objective. Um, you get all of the hard work done. It doesn't get reflected in terms of stats. And in my case, I was a little bit older when I began playing in first place, but I simply did it because I love the game.
Hmm.
Um, and there's no,
No
there are
recognition.
very few possibilities.
Yeah.
And if you make bad mistakes and choices like I did, then you're pretty much doomed.
Reflecting on your career as a player now, and I think this is a luxury that I haven't had with a lot of my guests, but you say the bad choices and mistakes that you've made. What is the biggest mistake? Which is the worst choice that you've made in your career?
Um, Probably when I was trying again to improve this scene, and we had this Martin team, a lineup that was supposed to be rebuilt, and the org was supposed to have an investment, and I had Sangal coming for me with an offer to be IGL for them, to try out and all of that. So they
That's
showed interest.
2021, just to clarify for everyone, right? That's COVID days.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but it could be 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, Brute Monster was on that team, was he? On Martin.
No. He wasn't on that team. That was after that. That was with infamous Maki
Okay,
Katalic,
right.
cousin of NiKo,
Yeah.
who was playing there. Izuo, E.
Yeah. No, D and Catalyst are definitely two names that I recognize. But yeah, okay. Just to clarify for everyone, it was 2021. Yeah, and then Sango comes in.
Yeah. They come with a proposal that they show interest that I should try out with them, and I decide to stick with Martin instead of going there, which that's a no-brainer. But that's a mistake I did. Again, I don't know why I did it. I guess it was too much too much of me trying to fix things that are simply unfixable here.
Okay, and you would reflect and classify that as the biggest mistake in your career. This is it's a really interesting thing because you don't get to have those conversations with guys that are still active as players, right? But it's a different thing when you're sitting next to someone that has recently put an end to their career as a player, and you can pick into the brain a little bit more. Another thing I'm gonna ask you about, and then we're gonna move into your coaching career and the recent times, but what was the best team and best players you've played with in the Balkan region? Because I want to end it on a positive note. So what are your best memories as a player? Like the team that you think could have made it the further, or some of the players that you've played with and you think they were special and they were really enjoyable to play with and the best.
The best team for me was that Apocalypse team. Later we became Blue Jays, but it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I made from scratch, and it was really difficult because I couldn't keep the team. I barely kept the team together. Now, if I look back at it, and if the same situation happened to me, I think I would give up now. But in that moment, that team with Madden and AVN later on was playing D as well.
Sharani, Dimka.
Yeah. That was the team. As much as it ended in a in a bad way because they kicked me later on, I wanted to do some lineup changes because I thought we wouldn't be able to progress any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I went beyond my human possibilities to make that team work.
Okay.
And that's something like the biggest joy is when you make a team from scratch with no resources, nothing. You guys grind your way out, and we, of course, we didn't have that big of a success. We had a couple of close qualifiers. We had a couple of wins against really good teams, but coming from nowhere and achieving that, for me, that's the biggest achievement as IGL and as player.
And just to
When it
round
comes
it
to
out.
players
Yeah.
specifically,
Okay.
to come to say players specifically, I would say Nexa. He was somebody to enjoy playing with. AVN as well. Madden was probably the most skilled player from our region I played with, but given the actual nature of both of us, we argued pretty much a lot, but still, we played together. That's a normal thing. He was really insane when we played together. He was really really skilled.
What would you say about both of them right now? Because obviously AVN I think is doing well enough on Zero Tenacity. He's playing like 1,000 maps per year, but I think with Madden and Nexa there's a lot more to be said right now because both of them are in transitional points of their careers, if we can call it like that. If that makes any sense.
I think they have so much more to give. What you need to know about them is that they're not selfish players. They're gonna do dirty work at all times. They're gonna do the most difficult job in order for team to win. So we don't. When you're looking at a game, you're watching a game from the outside. You don't
Yeah.
know what's going inside. Somebody has to do. Of course, you have extraordinary talents and superstars, but I'm talking about what a team needs in order to win. We cannot all of us we cannot be highlighted, we cannot be the main guys. Simply I'm saying about them, AVN is the same. He's gonna do everything needed for the team to win. If you say to him you're gonna go in first somewhere and die, he's gonna do it.
Mm-hmm. So you think, and you know what? I like the fact that you're making that point. I was hoping that you were gonna answer like that because that is the reason that I rate both of them really highly. And the thing that I love as well, I can simply say that about Nexa only because I've talked to more people that have played with Nexa in, let's say, comparison to Madden. I haven't really talked to anyone that's played with Madden. You're the first one. But everyone I've heard speak about Nexa, everyone was saying the same thing, and that is that Nexa is a bloody sweetheart of a person, and he's the nicest player to have on a team because he helps with everything, he does everything, he doesn't complain. He's always gonna do what is needed for the team, and always gonna do what is needed for the atmosphere. And you're probably gonna understand that when I say it. For me to hear that there is a Balkan player, a Serbian, a Bulgarian, a Macedonian, whatever Balkan player that is like that as a character is a unique thing, as unique as it gets.
Yeah, honestly, he is really chill. His communication in game is perfect, precise. He doesn't tilt. He's not gonna whine. He's not gonna do any sighing in the mic. And I know it was a long time ago, but when we played together, we never argued a single time. There was no misunderstanding that we're not on the same page or anything like that. So, for me, that's really important. And of course, saying that he doesn't get highlighted because his stats are bad. But his stats are bad because he's trying to do his best for the team. He's gonna take all of the fit things, all of the fit roles if needed in order for team to win.
Mm-hmm.
And it reflects on confidence in negative way that when of course I don't know if he is sensitive to comments and what community is going to be saying when you look at a game, any game you watch, somebody makes a good move, it's poggers. Somebody makes a bad move, bot. So that's how life goes.
No, from my experience, if someone makes something good, he's a cheater. If someone does something bad, they're trash. That's the thing that I've noticed. And before we get into Endpoint and you now becoming a coach, I'm actually gonna give two more examples of people that you've played with that I absolutely love, and I found it hilarious finding out you've played with both Shev and juricM, who are really dear friends of mine. So that was a fun one. I hate Shev as a player. I love him as a person. I hate him as a player because I always lose. I've never played against juricM, so I don't know. But I honestly I don't want a piece of that if it's the same like Shev. But yeah, moving into you deciding to become a coach. Now I guess for you it felt like a natural continuation, given that as a player. You weren't getting a lot of opportunities and chances in the last couple of years. But the question I want to ask you is, why Endpoint? How did it end up being Endpoint for your first team as a coach?
They were the team that showed, let's say, that the project that had most sense, like the best offer for me in terms of players, conditions. I had a couple of more offers. I had, let's say, a financially better offer from Middle East, and
When you say
that came
Middle
in
East,
as well.
was that Gigi How? I'm just a wild
No,
guess.
no, 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 no.
Okay, okay, yeah.
No, right. I'm not gonna reveal that
Right, because my guesses
for
are
now. Sorry, you
Gigi,
know.
Gigi How or Tyloo. You don't have to reveal it. It's just I saw what Into and Emmy did with Tyloo, so I'm like, yeah, it's probably something in most those lives. But yeah, please continue.
Yeah. So from financial aspect, it was like it was similar to I when I was playing. I had a couple of offers from MENA region and Middle East,
Hmm.
like to go through major qualifiers in that region, which I didn't feel like doing because for me it's unnatural. I'm from Europe. If I can prove myself here, I'm gonna be here. So again, to go back here, it was I really liked the idea. They showed interest. I can say props to Neil for reaching out to me and saying good things about me. Of course, he asked around about me, about how I'm working and all that. So for a first project, first team, honestly, it was the best decision.
It's
Now
a
I'm not saying in that sense, for a first team now I need to
okay.
play tier one or anything, but
Yeah, yeah.
you know, transition transitioning to coach and to get that kind of an offer as a first gig, it's honestly best best coach could
Yeah,
want.
I mean it's a big step, right? A lot of guys need to work a little bit more, but I guess Endpoint in that sense is an organization that loves experimenting, right? Because they oftentimes pick up newer coaches, newer younger players. It's the same policy that they seem to have with players as well, right? Where they go for younger, less proven guys, I guess you could say. But you become a coach. You spend around 6 months there, and unfortunately, things didn't work out for you guys. But before I ask you why, what was the biggest challenge? What was the most difficult thing to actually acclimatize yourself to when you went there? Because first of all, you're becoming a coach for the first time in your career. Second of all, you're doing it in English as well with a team that is pretty international. I mean, yeah, okay, you have 3 UK guys, but when you joined, no, I think when you joined, it was actually the current lineup, right? It wasn't the switcher
Yeah, yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, but you have Sjot who's from Poland, you have Crucial who's from the Netherlands, although he's pretty much British at this point. But was there a major difficulty that you had to overcome? What was the most crazy thing? Well, not crazy, but most difficult team to actually get accustomed to.
First, I need to correct you. I was with them for 3.5 months, something like that.
Okay,
So
yeah,
it
but
was a six
you
months.
joined in April, yeah.
No, I think it was end of July I started working with them, although we discussed and had negotiations before that.
Oh
But
yeah,
but
sure,
it
sure.
does
You know what just happened here? That's me
yeah.
seeing August before the start of the show on HLTV, and in my head being like April because I saw DA. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
correcting
yeah.
myself. Yeah, 3 4 months, but still point stands. Same question.
Uh, yeah, the biggest obstacle for me, the biggest challenge, I'm not 100% sure. I pretty much acclimatized really well. I would say that the biggest challenge was, as much as you know the game, it's your first time as coach, and I was doing individual coaching uh, before, but I never did it on a professional level with a team.
Hmm.
And again, I say, as much as I'm confident in my knowledge and I was IGL, it's still a big challenge because you don't know how things are gonna turn out. And especially given the fact you're a little bit limited. Let's say we play official games and I can see only MiGHTYMAX's POV because there's no coaching slot. He can only stream it for me.
Okay.
And I usually before, coaches could pick up things on other perspectives, other POVs of the players, and they could readjust something for future rounds. So this was for me probably the biggest challenge in coaching sense. You know, how to try and read and give something that's gonna be a good advice for them or somebody, how to readjust them on the fly. So that was probably the I'd say the biggest. It's not even the language barrier. Yeah, you know, I have accent and English is not my natural language, not uh, mother tongue,
Yeah.
but we still could understand each other perfectly. Of course, maybe a little bit of their accent because I'm not used to listening to
The UK
British, but still,
accent. Yeah.
yeah, the UK accent, but still, you know, you get used to it.
Yeah.
It's nothing like they have some expressions that you normally don't hear and naturally you don't understand.
Okay, and you mentioned Mighty Max's name. How was working with him as an IGO? How is he as an in-game leader? Because he's been around for such a long time, and I feel like he's one of the most respected IGLs in the UK as well.
I think it was really good. We had really good synergy, and he's a really hardworking guy. Like often we would, for example, practice ends, and we'd go have long discussions of what do we add next, how do we readjust this. So in that sense, like we had really good synergy and good correlation. The only thing maybe that's natural. It feels just he's a little bit because the way Endpoint works, they have two or three guys that are a little bit more experienced, and they have two guys that are younger talents, yeah,
Yeah.
and they make them, they shape them, and eventually there's interest, they sell them. This is how we could see them operating um a long time ago. So a little bit, it's a little bit for him because when I joined, they were 190 in the world, something like that. Also, back and forth, they had huge success playing ESL Pro League, playing RMRs, playing being in top 30 for so long. So for him, it's probably back and forth that drains his energy a lot. In that sense, maybe I noticed that he's a little bit drained.
Okay.
This is maybe maybe something I felt like I couldn't revive in that sense that you know bring some energy up and fix those things, let's say.
Okay. Yeah. That
But
makes a lot of sense.
in all other aspects, again, that's a natural thing. But in all other aspects, like we had a really good synergy.
That is coming back to how much of a roller coaster the tier 2 and tier 3 online circuit is, right? And it's really difficult when you've been around for such a long time as MiGHTYMAX to always be on the top level of motivation and energy, I guess. And the reason I'm asking you this question as well, because you spent 3.5 months, which is when you say it like that, it's nothing compared to a lot of the coaches on this level. But do you feel like you were able to maybe not refine, but just find your approach and in your style as a coach? What type of a coach do you see yourself as right now? Are you more of the analytical guy that's going to be doing the prep? Are you going to be the hype guy that's focusing a lot more on the mental? Are you going to be going for a bit of a hybrid? Like, what now that you can actually look back at your time on Endpoint, what type of a coach were you? And what type of a coach do you want to be? Because you're still really in a really early stage in your coaching career, pretty much. So there is a lot of time for you to actually decide exactly what category you want to fit in, or if it's multiple categories you want to fit in.
Yeah, for me, naturally, coaching comes with all of those aspects. So I do the match prep. Of course, coach should be the guy doing that. I hype them up whenever they feel down because there always has to be belief in us and us winning regardless of the current result of how things are going. There's gonna be wins and losses, but if you're not trying our absolute best, nothing makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm naturally the guy with high energy, with high motivation at all times, and I'm trying to bring everybody up. I also do a lot of theory crafting. I also bring new things to the table when it comes to map pool, when it comes to strats, when it comes to setups, and I also do a lot of analysis on when we lose a game, or even happened also often that whenever we win a game, and I know there were some situations, some of the rounds that we could have reacted better.
Okay.
I want to see from different perspective, and I review them in order to pick up on mistakes and solve them. So to answer your question, I'm a pretty much all-around coach. For me, coaching doesn't make sense if you're only the hype guy. Like, what kind of
Okay.
a coaching is that? You know, if the guys, I don't think it works, because if the guys don't have any belief and you come to them only with that goal of bringing them up, most of them are not gonna accept it, because it is fabricated, so to say. It's
Yeah.
not natural. But on another hand, when you take initiative and you pause, you give them a round or readjust them, and it works, I think that's gonna bring them much more up than you do it forcing it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. I love that
that's
answer.
pretty much.
Yeah, I like that. And just to round it out before the really big question of why things didn't work out, because you say it's been a policy for Endpoint to try and build up young players and resell them once they're ready to go into the tier one scene. We saw that with Heavy Gold, we saw that with Slent, we saw that with Nerds, we've seen that with a lot of guys coming out of the team across the years. What's your opinion on AZUWU and CJOT? You see the potential for them to be the next, let's say, Nerds and Heavy Got to go out of Endpoint and make it big in Tier 1 Counter-Strike?
Absolutely great guys. I've worked with them a lot, and we had so many demo reviews together, the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I say I would say they have really big potential, and they have really good mindset, both of them. Maybe one of the reasons things didn't work out, and maybe are not working out for them as things stand even right now, is because roles are all over the place. When I joined, for example, CJOT would be playing anchor on one map, then on another map he would be rotation. On T side, he would be in pack on one of the maps. On another map, he would be lurking. So it creates chaos, even for a young player like he is. He
Yeah.
has big talent. He's a big talent, but if I need to come to him every time we play a different map and explain to him how to play different roles, it get mixed up, and he's not gonna know how he needs to react.
Okay.
So that can be one of the reasons. But yeah, the guys, I think their time is yet to come.
Okay, and moving into the last thing about Endpoint, which I think is one of the most interesting questions for a lot of people, because obviously results weren't fantastic. They were a little bit better than the first half of the year, but they still weren't fantastic. So why things didn't work out, and why did you decide to leave Endpoint? Because you said a couple times that you left and you weren't benched. It was your decision. What made you make that decision?
Well, initially when they approached me, the org suggested we have 3 months of probation time in the contract, so it was
Mm-hmm.
3 plus 9, I believe. Um, and during which the first 3 months, anyone can leave or they can bench me on any grounds, any terms. So in that sense, it's a no brainer that if somebody decides to do it, they do it. But the main reason I decided I felt not continuing is because I felt like I couldn't fix some of the things in the team. Not that I tried to be the main guy, because as things stand in CS, coaches should be right hand of the IGL more than they should be in charge, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like it's pretty difficult, because when you come into an already set up team that has ongoing unsolved problems in game, let's say what I mentioned, roles all over the place, some of the other things, you actually join a culture that's already built. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was really difficult. Sometimes I couldn't, let's say, I couldn't bring them up. I couldn't make them believe. I couldn't break the negativity and bring more the positive things out. Nothing like there was any toxic environment or anything like
No,
that.
no,
But
no. It's
you know,
more like frustration and just build up disbelief.
more like I felt powerless, and my influence in some situations
Okay.
isn't there where it should be. So for me, it was mainly because of that. Because like I said, I feel like I'm an all-round coach, and as much as I'm not trying to be the main role guy, I want to have my influence.
Okay. Okay. I'm happy with that, and I think this is a good, I guess, ending point for this conversation. Now, last things last. Who's winning the major? That has nothing to do with you, but I'm just interested to hear your opinion on it. So who's winning the major and why?
I have to go with G2.
You have to go with G2. Do I need
Imagine the
to do I
headline
do
if
I need to ask why, or everyone can just think for themselves?
look, I'm biased, that's for sure. But imagine the headline with all the rumors going on with NiKo leaving, potentially Monesi leaving,
Yeah,
everything that's being again. Don't get me wrong, I don't have any inside info,
yeah.
but NiKo hasn't won a major yet. He's been one of the best players in the game, even as a rifler. Yeah. So for me, it's more something I want. Of course, I believe they can do it, but major is that anything can happen. For me, I definitely have to go with G2.
I'm gonna say it like that. I refuse to believe that we live in a world where a team led by Snacks as an IGO in 2024 can win a major, but that same team happens to have the best player in the fucking game and one of the best rifles in the history of the game, probably the best rifle in the history of the game, actually. So I guess who knows? I'm gonna take the G2. I was, you know what was I expecting? I knew you were gonna say G2. Of course, you're gonna say G2. But yeah, thank you very much for coming over. It was a really fun, really pleasant conversation. I really enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. And of course, people can find you as I expect you to. You probably are open to offers going into 2025. So hopefully we see a lot more of you, and I hope we see you land on a stable team really, really soon. But up until then, people can probably find you on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube, and all of the links are going to be down in the description. But yeah, thank you for coming over. It's been a blast. Anything you wanna say to close it out?
Thank you for having me, and to anyone watching, please subscribe to TED. This guy's been grinding the hell out of this. I know how busy you are with all of the tournaments even back in days. And now we have the major, yeah?
Yeah.
You're gonna be streaming it in Bulgarian. So to print out content like this in your spare time, which actually now has to be non-existent, I mean, it has to be praised. So
Thank you.
everyone, please subscribe to this gentleman.
You know what? You're Jesus Christ. You're the first one that I gave the word to, and he was like, subscribe to TED. So you know what, motherfuckers? Listen to my guest. Subscribe to TED. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.